edition of Game Gone Wrong. It's going to be a good one here today. We are here back in your ear holes to talk about episode 5 of A Night of the Seven Kingdoms. I am, of course, joined by my two big partners in crime on the Game Gone Wrong project. Let me welcome the man, the myth, the legend, the guy with the most awesome hat. I mean, space jamming it out, the one and only PC Tunney. Tunney, how you doing, buddy? What's happening? I love that hat. I just
I got
wanted to
it.
throw that out there.
I got it at the Midwest Gaming Classic last year, along with my Flash hat. It's really the only things I found there last year. DP and I weren't going to go back this year, but I need more hats, so I might have to go back just for more hats. Because I don't like being on live video with my 4, 5, 6 head. So I'm wearing hats on the live videos just for full. Well, you're bald pretty much. I still have hair. It just starts way too far back.
Yeah,
Fuck this guy.
Well, I just mean
yeah, really,
I love
man.
you. You have a great beard.
I love
You're
you too. I have a
we're
beard because
we're
I have no hair elsewhere.
we're podcast slut brothers. But the truth is the truth.
It is the truth. Yes, I'm. That did not solve our X problem, Tunney, but I'm going to repost
I'm
this thing
working on it.
anyway. I'm working on it too, so we'll see.
I
Um,
just reposted it, so I don't know. We'll see.
yeah, who knows? It's all weird. I don't pretend to understand half of this shit that goes on there. I guess we'll see what happens. Okay. Something's happening. Anyway, all right. Now on to the man with the matching hairline. I mean, we have kind of matching hairlines. I'm a little bit older than DJ. He's a little bit sexier than I am. That sort of thing. So, of course, he does have the greatest beard in all of podcasting. It is the one and only, the mindless one himself. DJ, how you doing, brother?
Buddy, I'm ready to do this with you guys. I had a rough day at work, and this is like doing this today is what's kept me going because we got a lot to talk about, and it's going to be a good episode.
Such an uplifting episode this one was. I mean, yeah, we got a lot of stuff to unpack and to talk about. Yeah, it's gonna be a good conversation. I will say before we get going, I wanted to thank my friend DJ here. Brought me on an upcoming episode of 30 Mindless Minutes where we talked about aliens. And are they real? Are we alone in the universe? What's really going on? And that is an upcoming episode of 30 Mindless Minutes. And always, as DJ knows, I will always talk UFOs any day of the week. And that was a very good conversation.
It was
Um,
great. I had a lot of fun with it, and thank you for coming on, Dave.
Absolutely, man. Anytime, man. It was a lot of fun to go and do that with you, and I hope we can revisit it again because who knows what's going to happen. I mean, from it changes from one day to the next as far as does Trump really have a disclosure speech? His kids apparently think so, but I have my doubts about that. But we're not here to talk about Donald Trump or aliens on this episode. We're here to talk about A Night of the Seven Kingdoms and the fifth episode, which was entitled In the Name of the Mother. I'm not sure I grasped the title of that episode, but anyway, I don't think that that's really the important aspect of this episode. We had speculated last week when we did the episode, guys, that we were not sure when. Yeah, I got to say, whistling Mike. Yes, we said aliens, Mike, but we're not gonna talk about it too much here because that'll just we'll just get too much of that, and then we need to keep our focus on the importance of this wild episode. Last week when we did Game Gone Wrong, we were speculating what episode 5 would bring us, whether it would be, would we get to the fight? Would we get to the trial of seven? What was going to happen with that? Would they leave us on a cliffhanger? Would they complete the battle? Would they start the battle? We knew there was going to be a flashback in there. I don't think we anticipated how impactful that flashback was going to be, but it was really an impactful flashback. But I think ultimately, guys, we got it pretty right. I think if there was a surprise, it's like, yeah, what in the aftermath of this battle where everything gets resolved, sort of more or less, you really start wondering about episode 6, the season finale, and you get some indication. Like I said last week, there's a bigger threat coming, and you do get that feeling of that coming if you watch the the sneak preview for next week at the end of this. But overall, before we start digging into the details, DJ, let me go to you first. What were your overall thoughts on this episode? Were you? I think we all think it's a fantastic episode, but in general, were you pleased at how they paced this, how they did it, the way that they handled the whole situation, the way they ended the whole situation, that sort of thing?
The thing that blows my mind the most about this show is that one, it's only 30 minutes, but two, they get so much done in 30 minutes. Like the question you asked was pacing, it may be one of the best paced shows I've ever seen in terms of the narrative, how they tell the story, how much time they dedicate to little each little beat in the story. It's incredible. It's so well done. And I find myself going, man, there's a lot going on here. And then it's over, and I'm like, wait a minute, it's already been 30 minutes? Like, how is this a thing? So, yeah, absolutely pleased with the pacing of the show. And as we go a little further on, thrilled with the episode. They just keep getting better and better and better. It just really is. And, yeah.
Yeah, they have. Every episode is built on the other one, and I agree with you, DJ. They've all gotten better. Tony, I don't know how they're going to top that in episode 6. I'm not sure they really can, and I'm not sure they really need to. But what were your overall thoughts on this penultimate episode to season 1 of The Night of the Seven Kingdoms?
The the ending was interesting. The sneak peek for next week was also interesting. I think the thing that I realized I had wrong with the flashback was we talked about Duncan's innocence a lot in the first couple episodes, and I think it was more of him just closing himself off from the rest of the world because he does not have much innocence at all, considering what he went through at that young age. Surviving the war, knowing his mother's dead, but still not being able to leave because he thinks she's going to come back, losing the love of his life at such a young age, and what he went through just to be able to get a drink of water from Arlen.
Yeah, no shit.
So he is definitely someone who was not innocent and naive. He was just someone that was more closed off from the rest of the world for a good long time, and living in a bit of shell shock, I would imagine.
Yeah, dude, I watched this episode with my wife, and man, she was just, and it's one of those episodes where, and if you have a wife like mine who really, she feels the episode. Like you can watch her reactions and you can tell she is actually feeling the impact of what's going on. And I love that about her, amongst other things. But that's one of them.
We got a comment from one Raymond S. Cashington's. He said he's only here for DJ #Italian Stallion.
Great, Mr. Cash, sir, how you doing, buddy?
Oh, that's awesome, man. That is awesome. Where is it? I don't see this comment. I gotta.
Is it on X or is it in the chat?
It's
something that happened on YouTube that didn't come through to our chat that I was made aware of, and now have brought to our attention, so we can keep on rolling.
Ray, why don't you join in the actual chat, man, and do it the official way? I'm just.
He did though. He showed me what he sent, and it didn't show up. So that's what I'm trying to explain to you.
See, there's something weird going on. We're all getting weird notifications of things that aren't showing up. It shows up for some of us, not for others. Oh no. They're on to us, guys. So yeah, anyway. But let's break down this episode into more bite-sized details because, as DJ indicated, there's a lot to cover here. We get as the battle starts, right? The Trial of Seven begins, and I mean, so we're thrust straight into the fire, and I don't know if we anticipated it to be this visceral and vicious as it was. But man, Baylor is giving Dunk's team, all those guys last second warnings, trying to tell them they want you dead. The fight begins. There's fog. There's chaos. Dunk is frozen in fear for a minute or for a few seconds there. And it's actually Thunder who is the one who springs into action and gets him out of this thing just in time for Dunk to just get fucking wiped, man. He gets lanced, smashed with a mace. There's another mace shot that's about to hit him in the face, and then we go to black, and then we go to the flashback scene. So let me go to Tony, you first. The way that this whole thing starts off, with this battle with Baylor basically saying, "Look, I'll handle the Kingsguard. You guys do this. You guys do that." There was when we talked about how Dunk's speech last week was very kind of like Braveheartish, his rallying cry and that sort of thing. And this kind of felt like the same sort of battle. You guys go around that way, you go around that way. We'll meet in the middle. So Baylor's trying to be the field general here and organize the troops. You can pretty much tell they're not very organized at all. And God love Egg, because you feel everything that Egg is going through in this episode. The same way my wife is squirming next to me, Egg is doing that as the episode is going on, and Dunk is taking a horrific ass whipping. But Tony, what do you think of the way that this got going, with the battle beginning and Dunk just kind of like, we've mentioned it several times, the whole notion that he's never really faced anything like this for real. And that little hesitation he has at the beginning almost cost him very dearly, huh?
Yeah, it doesn't help to take, lance right into the side, have a nice big puncture wound to start off with.
Don't recommend that. Yeah.
Your core is really necessary in fighting.
It helps you breathe too.
Yeah, Dunk and his other green friend, newly knighted friend, both erupted
Raymond
with a little bit of vomit, showing their nerves, but that's okay. It's almost like Egg got the horse to go. Right, you could hear Egg screaming from the side, but yeah, this is war. This is 7-on-7 fucking war. This is like the original war games.
Yeah, dude, it's like rugby with horses, man. Basically, just like let's just go.
Well, there's an interesting thing that happens too, though. Right before all the levity of the situation hits him, is he gets his lance from Dunk, or Dunk gets his lance from Egg.
Yep.
And they have their little back and forth like they normally do to try and
right.
Try and calm Dunk down with they'll hunt me down like dogs, and he barks at him, and you kind of like,
and
okay, but then
I thought that was important though, because it shows like, okay, he has put this betrayal that happened that we talked about the last episode kind of beside. He realizes there's much bigger issues at play here, and in that moment they're back on track, or so it seems, right?
I felt like more or less it was Egg trying to calm Dunk down with a little bit, because it was more of Egg's enthusiasm there. Dunk was kind of just like, his mind knew what was about to happen, and then you could see the regurgitation.
Yes, and there was a bit of that with Raymond as well, like you said. Deej, your thoughts on the beginning of this fight, which we don't get deep into it before we go to the flashback, but it's intense from the word go.
What I liked was what you mentioned with your wife watching, and as we sit here as analysts and we pick it apart, we're going to look at it a certain way. I like when you hear the perspective of someone who doesn't do the podcast thing, who just watches the show to watch the show, and you said she feels it. And to me, that's the key phrase. You feel it. This opening segment, from the tension, the puke, the nerves, the anxiety, all of it, I felt it sitting there watching it. Like when we watched, when we went through the final season of the original Game of Thrones series, and we talked about The Longest Night and the fight there with the walkers and everything, I mentioned how it felt immersive. That whole battle felt immersive, the way it was filmed, the way everything was. I've had the same feeling in this episode with the fight, that yes, it's really the Dunk and Egg.
Look at Ray. Crazy black names like Taekwon or Shaniqua. All right, Ray. You got
Leave it to Ray to take me right out of my thought. But yeah, I was immersed. I was immersed in this the same way that I was with The Longest Night.
Yeah, I agree with that, man. And it had a lot of those sort of elements to it with the two major battles in that last season of Game of Thrones, The Longest Night, and then the Battle of Westeros, where or King's Landing, or I forget what it was, Westeros, yeah, where the whole city burns, and that when Dany loses her goddamn mind.
It's Duncan and Aegon, Ray. Okay, so get off of our.
Egg is short for Aegon. Yeah, it's white people, Ray. Just.
It was funny.
Relax. It was funny. Thank you, Ray, for coming in here and letting us know that you found your way to the chat room. I appreciate that, and that make us play the race card. Good job, buddy. That is awesome of you.
Now, They'll settle down. Don't make us ignore you.
Yeah. Don't make us mute you. Don't make me mute you, Ray.
We're kidding. Thanks for tuning in, buddy.
Yeah, absolutely, Ray. You were the man as always, buddy. This is Ray. Ray Cash is one of our good buddies from Bandwagon Nerds and from a variety of projects. You've seen him on the Swaggy Awards, and so I'm thrilled that Ray is in here watching this episode. He watches Game of Thrones as religiously as he probably watches Flash Gordon, but you know, yeah, exactly. Inside joke, insider baseball. But
Yeah.
let's talk about the flashback. So we get to see, and Dunk's origins in Flea Bottom of all places, which I think is some place we're familiar with from the original series. And you get the young Dunk, he's an orphan, or at least he thinks he's an orphan, and he's all out there in King's Landing. He's scavenging with his close friend Rafe. And DJ, correct me, you've watched Dune Prophecy, right?
Yes,
So this is the same girl, right? The same Rafe is
I
the
believe
same.
I believe so. As the girl from Doom Prophecy, it's been a little while, so my memory's a little shaky on it. And I don't know that they've got a new season of it out yet,
They
but I
don't.
believe it's the same girl.
Right, the one who Layla, I think, or
Yes.
Lila, or whatever her name is.
Yeah, I believe
one of
that's
the
her
main,
name.
The main character. So they're trying to get passage out of the city. They're trying to get out of Flea Bottom, and then there's this thug named Alistair who becomes a major part of this whole thing. As we get a lot of in the flashbacks. We get Rafe and Dunk talking, professing their love, and like you were saying earlier, Deej, where Dunk is talking about, or no, it's Tony saying how it was one of you guys. I'm sorry, I don't remember. But the point of it is that Dunk is talking about how he knows his mom's dead. He's still waiting for her to come back, and even though he knows that she's dead, so it's holding out this hope that his mom will come back. And they profess their love for each other, and they've got this plan as to how they're going to make enough money to buy passage out of Flea Bottom. And as they're going along, I think Rafe steals something from Alistair, and he realizes it, and then he tracks her down, and they basically rob them again. And as they're threatening Rafe and Dunk, Rafe makes the mistake of stealing Alistair's knife or her dagger, and as they're walking away, he realizes it all too quickly, comes up behind her, slits her throat. Dunk has to watch her die. Dunk gets stabbed in the leg. So like Tony's saying, yeah, there is no innocence here. This is the end of innocence very quickly that we see in this whole flashback. And then it's Sir Arlen of Pennytree, who basically just destroys all these guys. Leave that boy alone is what he says. And, off we go from there. So Deej, let me go to you first on the flashback scene where we get the some of the backstory. We get the backstory of how Dunk ends up with Sir Arlen in the first place, and yeah, I mean, there's no other way to talk about it other than it's just absolutely soul crushingly tragic. And if there was any sort of innocence that Dunk had, it died with his girlfriend there.
Yeah, this literally you phrased it perfectly. The end of innocence. One, he's still holding out hope that his mom might return, but he knows and he's coming to the realization she's never coming home. And then watching her get murdered right in front of him, and originally the first thing she stole the guy's flask. He had a flask of wine or whatever he was drinking. She pickpocketed him and he realized it. And then when he ran into him later, he came back and he robbed them of the little loose change that they had trying to get out of Flea Bottom. And that's where everything just fell apart. She stole his dagger, he slit her throat, and he Dunk had to watch this happen because there was nothing he could do. So
Yeah, it's horribly tragic. I guess Sir Arlen is saying before, and this is where the episode title gets its name, that when he intervenes, he's shouting in the name of the mother, and he saves Dunk as this is going on. I guess that's where this came from, but I don't remember that part. But Tony, what do you think of this whole flashback scene and everything that went on there?
No, you touched on it, and I brought it up earlier, kind of overarching the entire episode, but it's just brutal. He's already been through so much, and now this incident where Rafe just can't help herself. And it's interesting, when they tried to leave and they didn't have enough, like prices have doubled, you're not the only people trying to leave. I thought that Dunk would tell her to just go, you go, no big deal. But yeah, her childishness, her inability to kind of think about the bigger picture got her. And lucky for Dunk, Arlen was there. Arlen was fucking shit faced, but he saved him. Um, so, yeah, it was an interesting scene. It was a tough scene. It reminded me more of Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon. A little bit more gore, a little bit more intense. Kind of, you feel the moment.
You absolutely did feel the moment, and you alluded to it earlier that after this happens, um, and Dunk realizes that Sir Arlen has saved him. He's following behind Sir Arlen for who knows how long. It's got to be days that he's going with no water, staying out of distance, watching him in his drunkenness, singing in Dothraki, all this other shit. Go ahead, Tony.
He's trying to. He drinks out of the creek, because
and
he's
gets sick.
and gets sick, and it's just a battle of will.
Yeah, and right at the end, he collapses basically from dehydration, and it's at that moment that Sir Arlen comes over to him. And I mean, it's like you've seen the Rocky movies, right? With Mickey and Rocky, get up, Rock, get up, that sort of shit, get up because Mickey loves you and all this stuff. Well, there's no love here, but we get the scene where Arlen is looking at him saying, get up. And at that moment, it shifts back to the Battle of Seven. And we go into that, and it's just even more brutal than it was when we left off. Dunk he just gets one of his eyes. I don't know if it gets poked out or just swollen shut from the impact of the blows being done against him. He gets stabbed some more. He gets his hand. He just it's just this most visceral fight. And I think like last week we talked about that everything would kind of clear and it would just come down to these two. And that's exactly what happened. And that is, of course, the way it had to happen. It had to be Dunk versus Arion at the end of this thing. And this just turns into a such an interesting contrast of styles. And I don't really know if Dunk has a style per se, but it is just this brutal, bloody, muddy, desperate fight between these two guys where, Arion is using his skill and his tactician's sort of way of approaching things. He's throwing knives at Dunk and hitting him in the leg. Dunk, meanwhile, is relying on brute strength and just sheer blunt force trauma, right? I mean, that is Dunk's whole way of approaching this thing is just to beat the living shit out of Arion. And, there's a point in here where Dunk collapses and you think he's dead because he's just there. His eyes are wide open. There is no movement. Eggs in the stands yelling, exhorting Dunk to get up, Sir Duncan, get up. He finally does get up. And then the brawl continues on, and Dunk just simply overpowers Arion. And he the scene at the end where because Arion wants Dunk to yield and he won't, but then when Dunk gets the upper hand, he wants Arion to yield, who he does. But that's not really good enough because Dunk wants him to publicly state he withdraws his accusations. And I gotta say, guys, you guys have seen Bloodsport, right? That Jean-Claude Van Damme movie. Yeah. We've all seen it, right? This scene where he's holding him in front of the king and everything like that, forcing him to withdraw his accusation, that to me felt like in Bloodsport where Jean-Claude Van Damme is twisting Chong Li's head and making him say Mate. It's like, Chong Po, yeah. Tong Po. Yeah. Tong Po, yeah.
See, I took it differently. Like, I feel like, Arion knew he was going to lose, so the only thing he could do as a true coward was to yield, right? But the only way that the battle would end is if he recused his accusation, so he had to drag him over. Because, the other thing was, before he was about to die, the guy who blows that horn signals the end, right? Yeah. So, the huge scream from Egg stopped that, but the only way for him to get him to blow the horn and not have to kill him, because Dunk doesn't want to kill anybody. You have to remember that, right? He didn't want to kill him. So the only way he was going to be able to, the only way he was going to be able to do that is you tell them, otherwise I'm going to have to kill you, right? Otherwise it wouldn't have ended.
Oh, I agree with you. I'm just saying, for me, it had that feeling like, what was his name, DJ? Tong Po, right?
Tong Po.
It felt like that, where he's just like, say it. say it, and he says Mate, and I get what you're saying, Tony, and you're absolutely right. He had to say that for the fight to end, but it felt kind of like that to me. Maybe it's just me, but Deej, your thoughts on this just this brutal one-on-one fight between these two guys that was just epic in every way, man.
I saw a couple posts on Twitter, and it made me think. It's one of them I'm going to save for the final wrap up on the show, but this one was really, really kind of just encapsulated this whole scene for me. When you think about a lot of these type of movies, any movie that has like a battle scene in it, it's usually well choreographed and it's very well blocked out and everything like this. This felt like what an actual fight would be like. It's not pretty, it's not choreographed. And the way I likened it was in wrestling vernacular, Arion is Owen Hart and Dunk is like Bruiser Brody. You've got a tough, huge brawler against a tactician. And at first, the tactician's whipping his ass. And then he's getting the better of him because he's outmaneuvering him. Dunk is not a trained fighter. He's a big bruiser guy that if he gets his hands on you, he's going to hurt you, which is eventually what happened. You just had just enough wherewithal and fight left in him to get up, continue the fight, and overpower his opponent. And that's where we are. Tony mentioned the word cowardice, and why? Or no, I think Dave, it was you that mentioned cowardice, and this is why Arion gave up. Cowardice is what got us here. Cowardice is what got us to the 7-on-7 fight to begin with. Right. So it makes sense that closes the loop on that because he's like, look, I don't want to die. I definitely don't want to die. So I'm going to tap out and I'm going to holler to the world that I made a mistake here. So yeah, it just so brilliant.
And that's a great point, DJ, that the whole reason we got to this is because Arion did not want to fight Dunk one-on-one because he knew that this exact scenario was very likely to happen. It's kind of like, I love the wrestling analogy that you made because we've seen that. And yeah, it's one thing in pro wrestling where it's scripted, and the smaller tactical guy like Shawn Michaels can beat the mastodon like Vader. Whereas in a real fight, probably not so much,
No, if Vader gets his hands on Shawn Michaels, that's it. It's over.
Right. And here you get to see that whole thing. And I think it is a brilliant analysis, Deej, where Arion has the advantage early on. Sooner or later, that strength, when he can't kill him outright, that strength takes over. And then it is quality versus quantity, right? Because Arion's getting the more quantitative blows in. But all it takes is a few for Dunk because he has the more quality behind it because it's all that power and all that strength and all that damage that just is done. And Arion wants no part of this shit. Go ahead, Tony.
Right.
The mace blows, they're really executed well and cinematically. And then Dunk with the groin rip with the sword kind of like gave that changed the fight. Right,
Am
that
I
was
the only one that
turning
cringed
point.
in that?
Oh my
god, dude! The holler I let out.
And then the other thing I wanted to, and then it was DJ. The way you brought out the coward comment and brought that story to fruition was excellent because we kind of were beating around it, and you nailed that. The other thing I wanted to talk to you guys about the fight was and cinematography wise and everything, and being in the moment. They would go in and out of you having Dunk's perspective, and your audio is muffled, and your video is and it really gives you effect of wow, he's barely surviving out there right now, and I thought that was pretty brilliant.
They did an excellent job as far as immersion, and going back to Rocky again. Remember some of those scenes, like especially in Rocky 2, where everything slows down and you could feel that Rocky just taking this horrific ass whooping. So they did a great, and they even muffled the sound and all that sort of stuff too. Yeah, that was they really. Oh. You're absolutely right. They immersed you in there, and they made you feel. You got to feel just how badly hurt Dunk was, and everything in those moments, and everything that he's feeling and experiencing, and I mean honestly, it's like maybe, and I think I read this somewhere. Somebody posted this. Well, he takes such a beating early on that maybe that flashback is kind of like a life rewind. Like, your life flashes in front of your eyes. Maybe that was something that was going on where he was reliving this horrifically traumatic moment in his life that actually led him to this moment which is with teaming up with Sir Arlen and all that sort of thing. Maybe I don't know. Anything's on the table, but um, at at the end of the battle, yeah, Dunk gets Arion to withdraw his accusations. Dunk wins, and it seems like and I was honestly surprised that we got to the end, that we didn't we didn't have a cliffhanger. They didn't stretch us out to the last episode, but it seems like there's kind of a happy ending. That's the triumph aspect. This episode's called Triumph and Tragedy. So that's a triumphant part, right? Through all this stuff, Dunk prevails. He perseveres. He's the victor. He is, he's vanquished this dragon. He stands, triumphant, victorious. But then the tragedy comes in. And, we find out that a couple of the guys who were on Dunk's team died in the very first charge. And that's bad enough. But then you get the real gut punch ending when Baylor comes in. And Baylor gets off and he's talking to these guys, and he notices something about the back of his head, the back of his helm, that has been smashed in, right? And he's talking, and I mean, when he starts talking about the symptoms he's feeling, that something's not right. Where he's talking about his fingers feel like wood, right? Is that what he said, guys? He said his fingers feel wooden and that sort of thing. And when they take off his helm, half of his skull goes with it. And as he turns around, you see half of his head basically gone. It's all over at that point. And it's interesting. His helm was the only thing keeping him alive, keeping all that stuff compressed and together as it could be. Once that was removed and it was all over and he's done and dead in a matter of, it takes just a few seconds. And it's a horribly tragic ending to this triumphant moment where, and Dunk is absolutely broken by this, because Dunk, before Baylor dies, Dunk says to him, "I'm your man." So he pledges himself to Baylor at this point. Half of his skull comes with it, he collapses and dies. Dunk breaks down. Some people are saying, and I didn't see it, but maybe it was part because there's so much going on in the melee and the fight that's not, everything going on like adjacent to what's happening with Dunk and Arion. You only catch glimpses of it, so you're not exactly sure what's happening or who's doing it. But most people think that it's actually Makar who dealt the fatal blow to Baylor. I don't know. I never saw it happen.
Well, he says that in the final speech. He's like, my brother's pretty strong. He basically says, my brother's Mace. He's a really kind of like along the lines. He's a really strong guy. So no, he's flat out says that was the killing blow.
So, and of course that is going to resonate loudly in episode 6. I'm sure, as we're going to talk about in a minute. But go ahead, Tony.
No, go ahead, keep going.
No, I was pretty much done. It is a gut wrenching. Just in an episode that's got pockets of triumph. This is mostly on the tragedy side because first there's Rafe, that sort of situation. We're watching her die, and now honestly, man, you think about the parallels that we draw about this. He watches Rafe die in front of him, then he watches Baylor die in front of him, who's probably the second most important person in his life, or third most, next to Rafe and Sir Arlen. Everybody who's near him, he gets to witness them die, and that's got to be impactful on him. But Tony, go ahead. Yeah, man, just jump on in here with your thoughts on the truly tragic ending to this episode.
Yeah, you realize as a viewer pretty quickly that this is the end for Baylor, and DJ hit it on the head. They're talking about the fight and how his helmet got smashed in, and he's like, likely was a blow from my brother's mace. He's quite strong. Was like the direct line to, yeah, he got me. It's sad. It's kind of gruesome. It's funny, you get the opening with them dragging Duncan, your attention goes right to, oh man, they need to get so much attention to Duncan, and Baylor's like, yeah, I'll send my maester, but after he's done working on, whoever else or whatever. And it's just, yeah. The interesting thing though is like the people who survive this are now like Dunk's people, I think, moving forward as well.
Raymond.
Right? It's his armorer, Raymond. I think, did Dayron survive?
they mentioned the names of who died in the initial charge, but with everything else going on, that was a
Because
detail
like,
that
yeah, like because Egg's brother like ended up fighting for him,
he
right?
did. He had the
And
drunkard.
yeah, I don't think he died.
I
I
don't
don't
think the
think he
drunkard
died.
died.
I don't think he died. So
Oh, Sir
yeah,
Stefan from the last episode, the one who turned
Yeah.
on Dunk. Is
no,
that who we're?
No.
Egg's
The
older
younger
brother.
kid, the
Egg's
drunkard.
older brother.
Yeah, yeah. I don't remember seeing him in most of the fight. Do you?
Well, but that's why I don't think I don't think he died. We see him put his helmet on and get ready to go.
Well,
But
he was going to take a dive anyway, is what he told. He told Dunk that he was part of Arion's team, and he was just going to take the fall real quick and just check out, right?
I don't know. But it was sad, and now they're all lost, and who knows what's going to happen next, right? They're now their immunity is dead,
Probably. Yeah.
except unless you watch like the preview. I got comments on that. So anyway,
We'll talk about that in a minute. Let me get DJ's thoughts on the end of this episode and the tragic death of Baylor, who risked it all for this guy he believed in and paid the ultimate price.
Yeah, but two times in this episode, I made an audible noise. One was when Rafe got her throat cut. I audibly gasped. I was like, ah, when they got her. Here, it was, ah, fuck. Because there's that moment of realization when he's in there and he's talking, you're like, okay, and, Dunk pledges himself to him, and all of a sudden he mentions something, something's wrong with my visor on my helm, and I'm like, wait a minute. And then he starts talking about, and he reaches, like you said, he reaches to the back. I'm like, oh, come on, man. And then when they take the helm off and you see the reaction of the armor and Raymond, and I'm like, fuck. And then he just collapses and Dunk just is just shattered, and it was just a crescendo of things as it built up to that moment. It was just heart wrenching. It really was heart wrenching. It's because it's in so little time, and this is one of the beautiful things about this show, and something that I'm gonna when we encapsulate the whole episode, I want to talk about. They built because he was only in what maybe 10, 15 minutes of total screen time, but they gave you this character that somehow or another you really made an attachment with, and now he's gone. And that's it. And just crazy.
I mean, the big thing he did was something he didn't have. He didn't have to do anything for Duncan. This is just a giant pain in his ass. But he is such a moral code of his own that he knew it was the right thing to do to step up
Yes.
the way he did, and that ended up costing him his life.
Well, yeah, exactly, and that's the thing is he was a stand-up guy. If he doesn't step in for Dunk,
He's
none
dead.
of that stuff happens, and Dunk's dead. And at the end of the day, it ends up being Baylor who pays the price so that Dunk could live. So it's certainly it is a horrifically tragic ending to an otherwise awesome episode, and it doesn't take it just adds to the episode in my opinion. It is heartbreaking, but it actually just makes this episode as epic as it was. So we've got one episode left, and this last episode is going to be something where, wow, we got a bunch of people in YouTube all of a sudden. It's like 16 people on YouTube.
Welcome.
Yeah, welcome in. We saw the previews for the last episode, and we get to see what's going on there. And what are they going to do in this last episode? Seems like a lot of housekeeping, but you do get the feeling very early on as Lionel starts talking about something bigger on the way, that there's another fight on the horizon. There's other things that they've got to do. And you get to see that happening. And I guess I'll go to you first, Honey. Where do you think we go in this last episode as they wrap this up? And obviously we got a second season that's coming. But where do you think they're going with this? Obviously Dunk's got to deal with the tragedy of this episode and everything that went wrong at the end of this thing. And, we don't know how badly he's hurt. We don't know whether that left eye is permanently gone. And that sort of thing. We don't know a lot of different things. Egg clearly is indicating he wants to be a squire. There's a scene where Makar's talking to Dunk, And that's going to be important because Makar is going to have to live with the consequences that he killed his own brother. And, obviously he had to do it in the heat of the battle and everything that was going on with the trial of seven. But Makar's going to have to deal with that. And the guilt of that he's the one who struck the fatal blow to his brother. Arion's still alive. That situation probably hasn't completely resolved. So there's a lot of things that are going to happening in this last episode. Will it be as dramatic or as action-packed as episode 5? Of course not. But will it have bigger depth and bigger meaning moving forward? Probably. So what do you think's going to happen in this last episode, Tony?
I love that Lionel Baratheon is going to be probably like part of, or Dunk's going to be part of his crew maybe to start or something like that. Keep in mind, folks, I haven't read any of the graphic novels, so I don't know anything that's happening except for the preview I'm seeing.
Keep in mind that I have read the graphic novels and I don't remember anything. So
I think the way they showed the preview, I don't. It's funny because they cut to Makar talking to Dunk like, my son is taking an interest in you, and he still wants to be a squire, and he will only do it for you.
right.
And Dunk says it, with all due respect, you're great, or you're whatever he calls him, with respect, my lord, or whatever. I think I'm done with princes,
Right.
And then at some point there's another cut to like a different scene, and then after a couple different cuts they cut back to like Egg and Dunk sitting next to each other looking very unhappy. I think very early on this next episode you're going to see Makar be like, listen, Baelor, in so many words, or not so many words, maybe actions, like, I'm in power now. I don't want to get rid of you. This is what my son wants. And I think Makar, as curmudgeoned as he is, has a deep-rooted respect for the rules. So I don't think he's gonna hold anything against Dunk, to be honest with you. And I think Arion is much more on the men, needing to be on the men than Dunk. I think Arion's going to be hurting much longer than Dunk is going to be. I don't think we realize the impact of, basically almost getting your head taken off with your own shield is why you yielded.
Well, to your point, I think Makar's going to come down very harshly on Arion because all this shit would have been avoided if you had just manned up and fought this dude one-on-one. He told his brother would be alive. It would have just been a straight up one-on-one fight and none of this shit would have happened. And I think Makar is going to be, I had to kill my own brother because of your cowardice, my son, and that sort of thing. So as DJ mentioned earlier, the whole concept of cowardice comes in very strongly here. I think there will be consequences for Arion beyond just having to yield in public like he did. And I think Makar is going to look very harshly on his son, who put all this into motion because he was a pussy.
Who's the prince now? Who's the prince in line now? Is it Makar?
I think it's probably Makar, yeah. He's got to be. I mean, you got Lionel Baratheon's not, although he is certainly trying to enlist Dunk to his cause because there's something bigger that he has to deal with.
No, but I mean, like, as far as royalty goes, who's going to be prince now that Baelor's? Because it was Prince Baelor. Baelor was going to be king, right? He was going to be the next.
Whoever his kids were. I don't know who his kids were. I don't even know if he had kids.
Or is it passed to his brother? Right. Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, Makar is clearly, I think that's what I gathered from the preview for the last episode. Makar is, like you said, he's in charge of this outfit at this point in time in some form or fashion. I'm sure we'll get more information on that. But like you also said, Egg wants to be Dunk Squire and only Dunk Squire, which is, for a prince of royal blood to say, I want to be a squire for this hedge knight is pretty impressive and pretty emphatic and pretty, unexpected. But Deej, where do you think we're going with this last episode, man?
I likened this episode that we just reviewed to the Long Night episode. And if this episode was their long night, the next episode can very much be the same as the one after the long night. This can be the emotional fallout of what just happened. Then that's what we can do, and we can play with this. Doesn't have to be some big battle, doesn't have to be some dramatic big thing. You can unpack all of the aftermath from Baylor's death and just everything associated with all of that. I think they can do that successfully in here and still leave us with enough of a cliffhanger. Obviously, we are 5 episodes in. Most people that I know and everybody on this show is coming back for season 2.
Oh yeah.
So unless they completely wet fart episode 6, and even if they do, I think we're still coming back for season 2. So yeah, I think you can do that. I think you can slow things down a bit and show us the emotional fallout and the toll that it's taken on these people in this journey that we've gone on.
Well, we had the literal wet fart in the last episode. So
Yes,
Oh,
we did.
well, the first episode too. I agree with DJ though. I think this is going to be the tying up all the loose ends from this first season because this first season I feel like is very much just this is how we got to where we're actually going to be. And
Right.
this incoming threat, I think that's got to be the final shot of the first season is the revelation of what this incoming threat is.
which is kind of what we talked about last week when we were speculating where we might end up with this episode versus where the sixth one will end up.
What's
now
the
we know,
incoming threat?
yeah, now we know for sure. Like I think you guys are right that they will be resolving, tying up loose ends, figuring out the lineage, what's going to happen to Egg. Will he be Dunk's squire? What happens to Dunk? He's certainly going to be elevated beyond Hedge Knight at this point in time. You just beat the shit out of one of the royal Targaryens, made him quit in public, so you're going to be elevated in stature pretty quickly. But I agree with you, Tony. I think the season ends with a clear delineation of this is the threat for season 2. We'll see in 2027, maybe 2028. I don't know.
I'll look and see what rumors are on that for
I'm
season 2
guessing it's
debut.
next
But here's
year.
my question: what's the threat? What's the bigger threat? What is it? Do people know? Do the books say?
The books
Do we-
say, but I don't remember what it was. To be
Well, don't
honest, with you.
spoil it. Let's watch the episode.
Yeah.
No, I don't know. So I'm trying to guess. Is
No,
it?
I read the
That's a
graphic
rhetorical
novels
question, okay.
3-4 years ago, so I don't really remember. But it is a worthy threat that requires all of them to kind of be on the same page, that sort of thing. Like what did they say in this episode? There's a war coming, right? That's what they say.
Okay.
There's a war coming. So this is not a little isolated skirmish. This is a bigger battle that's leading into, and really think about it. Game of Thrones, right? All the
It has
houses
to, there has to be something from Game of Thrones that
Right.
that harkens back to what we're about to talk about it
Right, 'cause
without
right
reading
now-
the books.
Right. Think about it. We've got the Targaryens and the Baratheons are the only houses that we really know about in this series, right?
I think the
We know there's
Tullys
about
too, right? Didn't we
I
hear the
don't
name
know if
Tully?
they, don't remember hearing
Thought
Tully,
we did.
but
Maybe I
but
don't.
there's
Okay.
so there's 4 or 5 other houses that are still unaccounted for as we move forward, and I would not be surprised to see a couple of more of those brought into this whole thing as we move into the last episode to kind of not just set the stage for episode or season 2, but to kind of set the stage for where Game of Thrones picks up 100 years from now, in not in real time, but in Game of Thrones time,
Fall of 2027.
fall of 2027. Okay.
God bless. We got a whole year and a half. Okay.
Man, well, we do have House of the Dragon coming
We do have
up.
House
so,
of the Dragon.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
hold over.
so yeah, for those of you who may have joined in late, and see we've still got 13 people in YouTube watching this right now. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Yeah, we've got one more episode of Game Gone Wrong to cover, A Night of the Seven Kingdoms, and then we'll be back when House of the Dragon season 3 starts up again. But yeah, I'm looking forward to the last episode. I can't wait to see how this all ends up, and how how the stage is set for season 2, because it's been an excellent series in every shape of the word. It's been tremendous, and I'm really impressed. I think when it first started, when the season first started, we weren't sure. It seemed a little bit campy, a little bit lighthearted, and then, like we said a few episodes ago, man, when they flipped that switch, they really flipped it. And these last couple episodes have felt fully like full-on Game of Thrones or House of the Dragon. There is nothing lighthearted or campy about this episode. Was as brutal as anything that we've gotten in Game of Thrones or House of the Dragon, right? I mean, it was as in-your-face, visceral, street-level, nasty, brutal, tragic as anything that we've seen in any of the shows so far. Agree or disagree, Deej?
Absolutely agree. Absolutely.
Tony, you agree or disagree with that?
I'm sorry, I was reading. I was researching something.
Dynamite drop in there,
I was,
Monty.
re-
That was awesome. Really
I
paying
was
off.
trying to spoil for myself what the bigger threat for season 2 is, so I'm not going to say.
Well, yeah. Don't say it. We'll wait till next
No,
week. But no,
that's what I was.
what I was saying was this episode to me, like we talked about early in the season, how Night of the Seven Kingdoms, some people were concerned about it, thinking that, oh, this is too campy, this is too lighthearted. And then when we got to that episode where the switch got flipped and everything got real serious. And this episode was as brutal, dramatic, tragic, visceral, street level, in your face, brutal, all of the adjectives as honestly any of the episodes that I've seen in any of the Game of Thrones series so far. Would you agree or disagree with that?
It was good, but it was not as brutal as some of the. I mean, think. I don't know. There's a lot more brutal episodes in Game of Thrones. There's a few brutal episodes in House of the Dragon as well. Like the kids, the kids, you know, maiming each other in the underground tunnel in House of the Dragon in season 1 is pretty freaking epic. But it's an excellent episode. It's funny. I think we would have been okay if the first episode and 3/4 pace and feel would have been the way this was told. We were kind of okay with that. We were like, hey, this is different. This is different feel. This is kind of more in its own bubble. It's not. It was all a trick. It's all a dream. We're right back to Game of Thrones, and why shouldn't we be? We're right in between House of Dragon and Game of Thrones, right? Like,
Yeah.
so, I mean, this is everything you could ever ask for. If I can steal a line from a popular song.
Steal away, my friends. All right, guys. Final thoughts on this episode, if you have any that we haven't already touched upon as we move out of here and get ready for the season finale coming up this Sunday. Tony, the floor is yours, man. Your final thoughts on this.
I love it. It's great. You know, we love Game of Thrones. You know, it's like it's no surprise that we have as much in common as we do, and that's how we, found each other and able to create some great content and meet some more new people. And hopefully, you guys are enjoying watching along with us and listening to our discussion. And we encourage you all to join in the discussion a little bit more as well. So it's phenomenal. Great casting, great pacing. The way they've done everything has been classic Game of Thrones, and I'm thrilled. I can't wait to see the little boy who's playing Egg is just fucking awesome.
He is. He's incredible.
Yeah, he has been magnificent. I can't wait to see what's next for him in addition to Night of the Seven Kingdoms.
Somebody is like, he's just screaming out. You can feel it to him to get up there while he's sitting in the stands. That one of the biggest things you could feel. It was great.
Deej, your final thoughts on this episode, man.
Incredible. I'm gonna call back the other X/Twitter post that I saw today. When I think about these shows, Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon, and now Night of the Seven Kingdoms, I love Game of Thrones. Obviously, I have loved House of the Dragon. I think this one might be second in line as far as my favorites above House of the Dragon. And simply for the way this post pointed out, with House of the Dragon, it's really, really well done. Really good storytelling. But I didn't find myself latching on to any of the characters the way I did Game of Thrones. And then when I look at, I couldn't name them other than a few. And the way the post read was, I would go to war for Duncan Egg. And that's just how I feel about this particular show and how I've been just latched onto these characters in such a short amount of time and with such short episodes.
Yeah, I agree, man. It's I don't know if it's tough because all the shows are very different and really good in their own different ways, but that sort of thing. We'll see what happens with this last episode. All right, guys, I think we've got to the end of this one. We've done all we can on this. People are starting to troll us in the chat, which I'm not going to pay any attention to.
We made it. We
did. When you get a troll, you made it.
We've been trolled. Yeah, now we've officially arrived.
Nobody's watching but you.
That's right. Thanks. We appreciate that. But guys, before we cut out of here, let people know where can they check you out on social media. DJ, you got a lot of stuff going on with all the mindless productions you have happening, man. Where can people check you out on social media, man?
You can catch me on the app formerly known as Twitter at the Mindless Pod. You can catch myself, Rob, and Jason, part of the Mindless Wrestling Podcast, every weekend, I'll say, on the Chairshot Radio Network, as well as all your favorite podcasting platforms, as well as my own podcast, 30 Mindless Minutes. I've got a bunch of episodes coming out over the next few weeks. Got a ton of content coming out. Really excited for you guys to listen to all of that. That's pretty much what I got going on right now.
Tony, you're the EVP of all things Chairshot related. Although, like Greg's like pumping out content even when Patrick's not around. I mean, what's up with that? That's kind of amazing. But
yeah, tune into our new show every Wednesday morning on Chairshot Radio Network on all your favorite platforms. I heard it's really good.
The newest addition to the Chairshot Radio Network from the owner himself. Yes.
Shit.
Where can people check you out, man?
Yeah, follow me at PC Tunney. Make sure you're going to thechairshot.com, prowrestlingtees.com/thechairshot. Make sure you're checking out the brand new 30 Mindless Minutes. Attitudeofaggression.com. Great website Dave's got going on over there, explaining everything we're doing here. And thank you, everybody, for listening, tuning in, watching, etc., etc.
Yeah, absolutely. Even those of you who are not watching, even if you are, we really appreciate that. So as far as me, as Tony indicated, you can check out the website attitudeofaggression.com, which has the episodes of the wrestling podcast, Unidentified History, Game Gone Wrong, all that fun stuff. On X, I am at Attitude Ag. That is at Attitude AGG. Probably the best way to interact with me there. And of course, check out the YouTube channel here, the Attitude of Aggression YouTube channel, and all that good stuff. And make sure you check out the podcast on Apple. And I'll say this again, if you're interested, please check it out on Spotify, because I'm still trying to figure out why there's nothing happening over there, which makes no sense because I know that's not true. But all the video versions of the podcast are there. So please go migrate to Spotify a little bit. We'd appreciate it. But that's going to do it for this episode of Game Gone Wrong. We got one episode left. Next week, the season finale. Then the show goes on hiatus till House of the Dragon Season 3 returns. But it was a great episode, guys. Lots of fun talking to you. It can't get any worse, right? I mean, as far as tragedy goes. So we'll see what happens with this next episode. And we will be back with a new installment, the final installment of Game Gone Wrong next week to wrap up Season 1 of A Night of the Seven Kingdoms. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We will catch everybody next time out.